Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Bon Voyage Besties. Today, we're joined by Ashley, a travel journalist and blogger with a passion for luxury travel, family adventures, wellness escapes, and incredible food and wine experiences. Sounds like my kind of person for sure. As a syndicated writer for the AP Wire and the founder of Wanderlux, Ashley has made it her mission to share insider tips that make luxury travel both affordable and approachable. Again, sounds like my kind of person. Get ready for a conversation that will have you packing your bags in no time. So let's welcome Ashley to the show. Welcome to Bon Voyage Besties.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you and to learn all about luxury travel. Like, this is a space that's always been kind of shrouded in mystery for me. So I'm really excited to just dive into the topic and learn all that I can. I wish I had my notebook here.
Don't worry, it's recorded.
Yeah, that's true. It is recorded. It is recorded.
No, I'm also super excited, like Rachel said. I remember at the very beginning when we started the podcast, Rachel had asked me to describe my travel style, and I said bougie in a budget. Like, I love luxury, I love the finer things in life, but I also like to find ways to save. So I'm just a little curious, Ashley, what made you get started in the luxury travel space?
Yeah, I think my background sounds real similar to yours. I feel like for me, it's just all about value, like trying to find something that is super high quality, but maybe necessarily isn't the most expensive, or you can maximize how you're using points and miles to get some of those experiences without necessarily having to pay for them. So I was a super early follower of the points guy and some of the points hacking influencers and things. So I got interested in that probably in my late 20s or so, and then used that as a jumping off point to try to get into other kinds of travel. My husband traveled for work very frequently and had high status with Marriott in particular. So for many years, that was how we jumped off of that for a lot of our personal travel as well. We would sort of save up the points and the status that he would earn through his work travel. And then that opened up doors for us to take trips that frankly, we did not have the money to take on our own. And as our situation has evolved, we've been lucky enough to be able to take other kinds of trips and things. And, we still love the points and miles as much as possible. So that's kind of what got me into it. And then I got to say, it's a slippery slope. Like once you get going on the luxury travel, it is hard to turn it off and go back to any other kind of travel. So yeah, this listeners should be warned, I think, of opening that door.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you go through the portal, that's it.
That's it. That's
The
it.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, I always think of this one time. It was a couple years ago. I went to Washington, D.C. to see friends, and I have the Hyatt card, and I had enough points where I'm like, I'm going to treat myself to the Park Hyatt. Like, it's super swanky. Why not? I don't have to actually pay for it. Then I get there, and they upgraded me to a suite. And I was like, why did you do this? Because now when I say anywhere else, I'm going to be thinking about this luxury suite at the Park Hyatt. And I'm like, I can afford that every time I travel. So just that one time, I still think about it. It was a beautiful room. I had my laptop and little living room, this huge bathroom with this tub. And it was just like, oh my God, it was amazing.
And getting that royal treatment, I mean, I know for myself, we went to Aruba early in the year, and same, we have status with Marriott. So as soon as we walked in, they're like opening the door and they're like, good afternoon, Miss Castillo, welcome. Everyone's so friendly, so welcoming. They had like some welcome drinks ready for us. And just like the level of attention, I felt like a VIP. And I was like, all right. I looked at Michael and Samantha. I was like, see, this is what I need every time I walk into a hotel.
Yeah, it gets hard to lower the expectations, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of curiosity, do you have a favorite hotel, like one that you've been to a couple times and you're like, yeah, this is like my home away from home?
One that not that I've been to it multiple times, but I went for our 10-year wedding anniversary. We went to Villa Feltrinelli in Lake Garda in Italy. And I have been dreaming about going back to the hotel since we went in probably 2019, I think. So it was right before COVID started. And I have been dreaming about going back ever since. It was just like the most relaxing, luxurious, like you sit lakeside and they just show up with coffee or cognac or whatever it is they think you might be wanting in that moment. They like went into another town and got my husband gluten-free pizza because he can't eat gluten. They weren't able to make a gluten-free pizza on the property. And so it's like little things like that that I have been remembering for the last 6 years. So that one is a huge one for me that I would just love to go back to. But there's several that I've been to multiple times, more like places, I think, than specific hotels, probably.
Hey, awesome. That sounds so nice. I need to go back to Italy. I think that
It's
every
always a
single
good
day.
idea, right?
It's always a good idea. I was talking about it actually today with the other gym teacher at soccer practice. I was like, I'm thinking of going to Sardinia this summer. And she was like, yeah, go for it because I just need to spend more money.
You should do it. I was just talking to someone. I went to an event and I was networking, and she was telling me that her husband's from Italy. So I asked her, what are some of your favorite places? And she mentioned Sardinia. And I was like, just sign me up. I feel like anywhere in Italy is just like perfect. And like you said, the treatment and the customer service that you get is just another level.
Well, and for Sardinia in particular, I'm pretty sure Delta's starting direct flights there from somewhere on the East Coast. It might be New York. I don't know. But I think
So
I
I
think so.
just
Yeah.
saw an announcement about they're starting new flights there. And I was like, oh, there's a new
Yeah.
one.
you might have
There's
to
a new
cheat
one.
on United, Rachel. Switch
Yeah.
over to
I,
Delta like I did.
I think I'm going to have to cheat on United. I wish JFK wasn't so hard to get to, but if United keeps raising their status requirements, I might end up just cheating on United. But the show is
Mm.
not about cheating on United.
Jury.
It's about luxury. So, with luxury travel, Ashley, a lot of people think of like the big price tag and the out of this world experiences. But what does etiquette look like in this space?
I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot of poor etiquette around luxury travel. Honestly, like there can be a lot of power trips in this space, and a lot of people thinking that because they're paying a high price for something, that they deserve anything they want. No matter how ridiculous it might be to ask for or how offensive it is. So, I think there's a big difference. Like to me, etiquette is like the difference between being particular and being willing to pay for to have your quirkiness indulged, and sort of the bad etiquette side of like being difficult for the sake of making people do things for you, to kind of feel powerful about it. So I don't know. To me, I think that the etiquette as it is like taking up space respectfully, being able to ask for what you want, but being reasonable, being appreciative, when you're receiving something, and kind of recognizing all of the people and the things that go into making these travel experiences as spectacular as they are, and the fact that it takes so much work and so much effort and so much forethought and planning, and being respectful and grateful for those things, and being able to show that in an appropriate way to the people who work behind the scenes to make it all happen. I think there's a lot of ways it can kind of go wrong, but there's so many opportunities, I think, also to like lift people up and to recognize the great work that goes into making these things so memorable for all of us.
And I agree. I think kindness goes a long way. I work in customer service industry, and let me tell you, the customer is not always right. And coming in,
Exactly.
demanding with all these high expectations. And like you said, it's different when you're, just politely asking, maybe you need a special accommodation. Like you said, maybe you have like a gluten allergy or something that's
Mhm.
very specific to your needs, but just ask politely. Don't make these crazy demands or outlandish asks, like you said, just because you're paying a high ticket price to stay at an accommodation, or let's say you're flying business class, whatever the case is, doesn't mean you get to treat people like garbage, because being nice actually gets you much more than being a jerk.
That's so true. And I think you see it in so many spaces too, of people who kind of they get on a little bit of a power trip because they're like, "Oh, this is so great." I don't know, it can bring out not the best in people, I think. So to me, when I think about etiquette, it's all about that. It's like, how would you treat people in your normal life? How would you want to be treated in that situation? Because you will end up getting better service that way. It benefits you. And of course, it's just the right thing to do as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, especially considering how much effort the staff puts into making this a remarkable experience. Like, I always think of my press trips that I would take as a blogger and all of the effort that the PR would put into it to make the experience good. And I would always thank them. My first press trip, I remember I actually got the staff a card because I really appreciate it, like how great the itinerary was. And just like showing that kindness and compassion, because it's true, it does go a long way. And I've seen a lot of pretty terrible behavior at the Newark airport with this, especially people with status if a flight gets canceled or delayed. And it's like we're all in the same public bus together. And unless you're flying a private jet, which you're not, just like cool your jets a little.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, would you say there's some unwritten rules of luxury travel?
Probably. I don't know. I don't think there's any rules. And I do think in a lot of ways we're all kind of making it up as we go along. I think tipping is probably something we'll get into, a lot or throughout this conversation. And I think some of these things definitely vary by culture. It's kind of hard to make a single statement about that because I do think it depends a lot on the destination that you're going to and things. But I think overall, like recognizing good service, treating people with respect, asking for what you want, but don't expect people to read your mind. I think those things are kind of universal and they're going to apply no matter what kind of a situation you're in.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, especially like not expecting people to read your mind because it's always a good thing to say what you want politely and respectfully, especially if it's a request that isn't too demanding. But just because you paid a lot of money for something, you shouldn't expect people to be mind readers. Like, I certainly can't read minds. I don't expect anybody else to either. So, just like out of curiosity, because we're talking about how like the customer isn't always right, have you seen any really like crazy things on your luxury travels with entitled guests or anything like that?
The thing that I can't get out of my mind actually is not from one of my own travels, but somebody that I have been following, a travel agent who works with the luxury travel space. And she has been posting kind of anonymized phone calls with some of her clients and just some of the ridiculous requests that they come up with or complaints that they have. And some of them are so outlandish that I can't quite decide if they're manufactured or if these are real conversations. So I feel like those are the ones that are completely sticking in my head right now of like, where are the lemons sourced from? I'm allergic to lemons from certain countries and I need to know where the lemons come from. Or being offended by the quality of the brand of caviar that's being served and things. And some of those are so over the top that I'm not really sure if they're real because I just hope people don't act like that, I guess is kind of the feeling underneath that. So I'm not sure I've seen anything that's like completely outlandish. I think I've definitely seen people who've overindulged in things and, kind of leads to bad behavior and things. But, you hear about stories like that and hopefully they're not super common.
I'm sure it
Yeah.
happens. I mean, I know in my industry in property management, sometimes I hear things and I'm just like, I don't know. Like, you cannot be real right now because this request is just like out of this world. But we get it all the time and it's actually kind of fun. I was listening to this other podcast and it was just an episode, particularly about outlandish requests or complaints in the customer service industry in the hotel and tourism. And one guy said, I think this was like somewhere in the Caribbean, but one of the guests was upset because they said that their Coca-Cola was like 5 degrees too warm. And I'm just like, I mean, I get it. If you want a nice chilled Coca-Cola, I would be upset, but I'm not gonna be like, hey, it's 5 degrees too warm. Like, who even takes the temperature of their drinks? But you have interesting people out there.
That's so funny. It reminds me of the White Lotus and like not getting the pineapple suite.
But he was right. They paid for it.
What I loved about that was that their first room was actually prettier. The pineapple suite was pretty ugly, which I think was the point. So, anyway, when it comes to luxury travel, it does feel like intimidating for many people. I know even me, when I stayed at the Park Hyatt, I felt a little bit out of my element. So, let's start with the basics. And a major point is tipping, like you mentioned. So, who should you tip, how much, and when?
Okay, so I feel like we should buckle up. I feel like there's so much that we could dive into on this one. Okay, so I guess the first thing I'll say is I don't think there's a playbook to this. Like, there's nothing that somebody hands you and it's like, okay, this lays it all out. This is who you tip and when and how much. And so I'll say this comes from my own experiences, my own blunders. It's evolved as my travel style and my means have changed. And I think it's mostly US centric. I'm from the US. I live most of the time in the US. But I do use similar rules of thumb if I am traveling to American branded hotels in other countries as well. So I'll use all US dollar kind of figures in this, but I think you should tip people who provide you a meaningful service of some kind. Drivers, tour guides, restaurant staff, concierges, butlers, people like that. There are differing views on if you should or need to tip housekeeping. I usually do. And for me, the amount depends on how messy I'm leaving the room, or if I am asking for little extras, like I want a couple extra bottles of water or something like that. I don't tip every day, but I do make sure that when I do tip that I'm going to leave it on a note that clearly lays out that it's for housekeeping, because otherwise they will probably just leave the money there so that there's no question of theft. So if you're going to leave money out for housekeeping, make sure that it's on a note or something, or in an envelope that says housekeeping on it. I would probably tip $10 every few days, every 2 days, maybe every other day, something like that. I also tip for anything big or anything that provides like a big convenience for me. So, any service that reduces the waiting time that I have, for instance, or something that allows me to stay engaged and having fun while somebody else is dealing with the logistics piece of something. So, I guess to go back to kind of like the meaningful part of meaningfully helping me, I mean, something that's going to take more than a moment of their time. So, you're probably not going to tip the bellman who opens your taxi door when you arrive back at your hotel. But you should tip them if they hail you a taxi in the pouring rain after they've stood out there for a few minutes trying to hail one, waiting for something to drive by. Those are kind of different levels of service in my mind. You don't need to tip every time you interact with somebody, but I think definitely when there is a service that they're really providing for you. So, how much to tip depends on the person in the service. I'll usually tip $2 to $3 per bag for having my bags unloaded and brought to my hotel room. If the bellman is managing 3 or 4 bags and is bringing them to my room and then kind of orients me to the room, shows me how the electronics work, things like that, I'll probably tip $10. For valet, I'm going to tip $5 to $20 depending on the place. If they park my car close so that I'm waiting less time when I want it back, I'm going to tip them a little bit more. But a lot of the valet, I feel like, depends on the sort of luxury factor of the place that I'm at, and this stuff really does depend on, you know, luxury is kind of a large, even though it's sort of a subset of overall travel, I think there is a large variety within there. So that all kind of is the caveat to any of this. And then I think the last big one is like concierges. And for concierges, it really depends on the service that they're providing. $10 is going to be appropriate for suggesting their favorite cafe nearby and setting you up with a map and some other tips and highlights, something that you can do at the desk in a few minutes. Something like getting you tickets to a sold out show or a reservation, at an impossible to get restaurant, that might be $200. For concierges, it's really going to depend on the price of the thing I think that they're helping you to get.
I think one good thing that you mentioned early on, like for us living in the US, a lot of the travel and tourism, they're very accustomed to receiving tips. I know when we went to Japan, the gentleman went upstairs, he helped us with our bags, he showed us like all of the electronics, like where the charging stations, like all the little amenity kits within the room. And at the end, Michael went to go and give him a tip because that's where we're accustomed to doing back home. And the gentleman was like, no, 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 like, thank you, but we don't take tips in Japan. And then we were like, okay, duly noted. So when it comes to traveling overseas or outside of the US, what do you think it's like the typical like rule of thumb, or where can you kind of do a little bit more research when it comes to the culture as far as tipping is concerned?
Yeah, I think this one's really important because different cultures really do view it different ways. And there are some places where tipping is pretty insulting because it indicates that they're not making enough money at their job and they kind of view it as a handout that is not really welcome. So I definitely think it's a good idea to do just a little bit of research before you head to a new country to understand what are the tipping customs there. I was just in Norway and the tour guide that I was working with, or I took a tour, and the guide, she kind of made it clear up front because it was mostly a group of Americans. And she was like, if you felt that this was, exceptional service, you're welcome to tip me, but please don't feel obligated. We make a wonderful living wage here. So it's not necessary by any means. So there are different places that really view it differently. And luckily, you can find pretty much all of that online. There are a lot of threads on different social media sites, on Reddit, things like that, where you can get feedback not only from other travelers, but also people that live in those locations full time to kind of give you the inside scoop on that. But that is one of my top tips for people is to just take a moment. And I even as somebody who traveled all the time, I forget to do this. And I land and we're in a taxi and my husband says, well, should we tip? Do we tip here? What do we do? And I'm like, shoot, I forgot to look it up again. So, it's not something that luckily you can find it really quickly in most instances, but I even still forget it myself.
And
Yeah, I do too.
I know it happens to us all the time. I forget exactly where we were. And same thing. Michael was like, well, do we tip now? Do we tip later? And we were going to have a guide for an extended period of time. So I was like, no, we'll just tip at the end of the trip. And then granted, like we did a couple of things, small gestures, like if we went to the store and we grabbed a couple of extra waters to share and things like that. But I was like, well, wait till the end of the trip, and then we're gonna have the same person the whole time anyway. So I was like, we'll just tip at the end, as opposed there's no point in tipping every single day.
Yeah, that's I for kind of one-off services, I will usually tip as they happen. So I tip the valet when I receive my car back. You tip the concierge when they provide a service for you. But if I'm going to be interacting with someone multiple times, I actually usually tip a bit up front and then a bit at the end. So I find, especially with like butler service and things, it can kind of set the tone. It starts it off with a good relationship, and you're sort of making a down payment toward, hopefully, good attentive service, and then you can thank them and appreciate them at the end, depending on how it goes.
That's
Yeah,
a good
that totally
strategy.
makes
I
sense.
do that at the bar.
Exactly. It's the same. Yeah.
You want to tip well in the beginning so they keep coming back to give you drinks. But yeah, so speaking of butler service, this has always been like a dream for me to have like a room with a butler service. That just sounds amazing. What other etiquette should travelers know when it comes to butler service? Because even though it's something that I dream about and think would be really cool, I'm not familiar with the etiquette at all.
Yeah, so typically your butler will be either the one that shows you to your room and delivers your bags, or they'll come by shortly after you check in. And then their services can vary by property, but typically it's going to come with packing and unpacking your bags, like a coffee or tea service in the morning. Much of the time, that is free. Like the coffee tea service is free. Pressing of some of your garments, not like doing laundry, but ironing and things. That also is free, other than what you're tipping them for their help. And then often some concierge type services. So when we stayed at the St. Regis Maldives, my husband didn't have water shoes and he wanted some. And so our butler was able to find some. And of course, we paid for the shoes themselves, but the butler organized the getting of the shoes. They just put it on our bill essentially, as opposed to us having to go anywhere and buy them. And then they just magically showed up in our room. So his services were free, other than what we tipped him for helping us out throughout the week. And I feel like the packing and unpacking is worth talking about a little bit more, because it's one of the things that I used to feel the most uncomfortable with. I think those are my own control issues, but I'm so all for it now. They will not pack your things the way that you pack them, but you don't have to pack it. So that's pretty great.
Sign me up.
Yeah. So if you are a space maximizer, if you are using packing cubes and compression bags and you're a wizard at getting all your stuff in there, you may not get a ton of value out of them. But I find that just being able to be present for just a little bit longer on that last morning, it's just, I don't know, it's just priceless. It's really wonderful. So I think that is well worth it to give up the control of not having it exactly as I might do it. So in terms of etiquette, you do tip your butler. How much depends on how many services they offer and how much you're using them. And if you're asking them for things that are more concierge type services that might be a little bit outside of what their maybe traditional scope would be. And I think also how frequently you're contacting them. So ideally, you can kind of send one message and you can say, hey, we would love to have coffee at this time. We were also wondering if you could help us with a reservation on property for dinner at this time. And we were wondering if you have a copy of the Financial Times that you could send with the coffee. Get it all to them at once so that you're not kind of dripping and drabbing and taking up a lot of their time and energy, for things that really, if you can just think about it a little bit ahead of time, they can provide you a better service that way. And then I kind of mentioned already, I like to tip the butlers a bit in the beginning and then again at the end. It's going to depend a lot on the type of property, that you're at, but maybe for a 3-night stay, you might tip $20 in the beginning and $20 in the end, or 50 in the beginning and 50 in the end, depending on the location and service. If it's a week-long stay, maybe you're doing $100 up front and $100 or more at the end, depending on how much they're giving you. If you really don't hear from them or you're choosing not to use them, then I think you can cut that down a little bit.
That just sounds so nice. I'm just so stuck on the packing thing because I'm like the worst repacker ever. Rosa and I did a staycation over in Jersey City. My suitcase is still sitting in the hallway and it's very poorly packed. I just kind of like stuff everything in there. So the thought of having the butler service is amazing. But yeah, it makes some sense that you would want to like list everything and give it to them and not in drips and drabs, because I know even for me, as the soccer coach, if there are certain things that the head coach wants done, it just makes more sense to know about it all up front because then I work more efficiently. So, like, that would definitely extend to butler service as well. So, are there any other, like, say, mistakes that new luxury travelers make that they can avoid on their first trip? Because I feel like I'm the sort who would just make 50 million mistakes on my first visit.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about tipping, but I think having the small bills to tip and having them easily accessible is really important because if you don't, it becomes awkward if you're looking around for money because in many instances, they're expecting that you're going to tip and you're indicating that you're going to, but you don't have the money available. So have small bills, have them available, or think about it ahead of time. So if you're in a car and you're going to tip your driver, as you're starting to pull in, go find that money, get it ready. I think also not checking the dress code before traveling. There's a lot of luxury spaces are on the fancier side, and some of them have requirements about what kind of shoes you can wear, if you can wear denim, things like that. We ran into this in London. My husband always wears fancy sneakers. He wears like Jordans. He has dozens of pairs of Jordans, and that's his main form of shoe. Well, we were trying to go to the cigar bar at the Ritz in London, and they do not allow you in with sneakers, even nice sneakers, things like
And
that.
they could be expensive because my husband's a huge Jordan fanatic, and some of his sneakers are like $300-$400. They're not cheap.
They're not cheap shoes, but they're not dress shoes. And they were so polite and so kind, but they turned us away and we couldn't go in there. And it was all for him because I don't really smoke cigars. But yeah, so know the dress code before you're traveling and the places that you're going to want to go and maybe have at least a dressier option so that you can feel comfortable in those spaces. And then I think the last one, which is not necessarily a blunder, but just like something that I feel like I've learned about luxury travel in general is just like there's almost always a way to get something that you want if you're willing to pay for it. So don't be shy about asking for something. If there's something that is a little uncomfortable, or you're like, hey, that table looks really nice. And I'm wondering, it's by the window. I would really wonder if I could sit there, or that would be nicer. You can just really politely ask, like, hey, is that table available? And they're used to people asking for the things that they want. Just be kind and be polite about it and be understanding if the answer is no, that's already reserved, or if there's a reason for why this person got this thing and you didn't. But there's no harm in asking.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. We talk about that a lot on the podcast that if you want something, advocate for yourself and ask. Because really, like, the worst you can hear is no, just don't be a jerk about it. But you may get a yes and you may get a better table or a better experience. And it doesn't hurt to just like gently suggest something.
Yeah, just don't nag the person. That happened to us when we went to Paris. We went to see Moulin Rouge, and there was a family of four that was sitting next to us. And our tickets were kind of like standard admission, so it was a little bit further back. So we were there with another family from Canada. And the family that came in later on, they were complaining to them so much, like, no, this is far back. And for like a good 15 minutes, I just had to listen to them just complain and complain and complain. And then eventually the guy just said to him, like, fine. But he put them like closer up, but like up against the wall. So then we're laughing because like, yeah, they got closer, but they're like up against the wall. So like an obstructed view. So like complaining is not going to get you what you want. So just be nice about it. And when they say
Yeah.
no, it's no.
No
And I
means
think
no.
you kind of need to know which are the non-negotiables for you. Like if that's a really important show for you, that's probably where you want to put your money, right? You want to put your money in the thing to make sure that you have the experience you want. And then there's other things that you can leave a little bit more to chance, and you can ask about an upgrade or you can ask about a better table or something. But then that really is more just up to chance, right? So I think as long as you are willing to lock in the things that are most important to you, then you can just be pleasantly surprised, if anything else comes up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side with the Moulin Rouge, I went with a friend to Paris and we went for the show and for the dinner. And we were really, really super nice to the staff, super sweet. And I think you're only supposed to get a limited amount of champagne. Well, the gentleman waiting our table definitely gave just me a whole bottle of champagne and then a whole bottle of wine. So it pays to be nice in the Moulin Rouge because you may get a lot of champagne. Just throwing that out there, folks.
It pays to be nice everywhere. I think people want to pay back kindness with kindness. And who's going to get the better seat or the upgrade or the extra helping of something or the extra pour of champagne? It's going to be the people who are treating you well and the people who are respectful and recognizing that you're also a human and that they don't deserve anything more than you. So I think it's a good lesson. I'm glad it worked out for you.
It's a good rule of
Yeah.
thumb in general. I know in one of the episodes, Rachel and I, we were talking, and I mentioned that I traveled once with a group, and there were particular people within our group that they were just terrible tippers. And I felt the need to overcompensate because I just felt bad. And we weren't having like bad service, the food wasn't bad. There was nothing negative or nothing, not a bad experience at all. And they were just bad tippers. So I felt the need to overcompensate. So, what are your tips when it comes to traveling, let's say with the group or maybe with family? And they're not necessarily those type of people that are typically in the luxury space and they don't really know the etiquette when it comes to the customer service or the tipping culture.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think just kind of staying aware of your group in comparison to, I don't know, the surroundings that you're in. Like if you are, I would in that instance, I also probably would have overtipped and said, hey, I don't know. It's difficult to have that conversation with somebody of like, hey, I think the tipping standard here is about, whatever, 20%. And we've had this happen too, where there was somebody that I know pretty well who we would go out to eat with them and they would pay exactly their price, not even including tax nor tip. They would put in for just like the dollar price on the menu. And the rest of us were just like, but what
So
are
they're
we
like
going to do?
underpaying.
Yes, exactly. Yes. It's like, well, what do
Paying
you do?
tax. I'm not scared of the IRS.
Like, what do you do in that situation? That's a really difficult one. I think I probably, honestly, what we've done in that instance is just kind of minimize being in those situations with that kind of a person, or just
Because
like
money talk is difficult, especially when it
it
is with
really
close
is.
friends and
Oh
family
God.
members.
So hard. So hard.
It really is. I think there's a couple ways I think you could do it. One is, of course, you can try and split bills. A lot of places will do that only a certain number of ways. Another way is that everybody picks up a different bill. And then you kind of have to be careful about, are we eating at similar places, similar price points and things, but you can kind of split it around that way. But I think it's maybe just a good natured, hey, I think we may be under tipping a little bit. I want to make sure we're recognizing the good service that we got here. So I'm going to put in a little bit more. But I think you kind of have to decide, what are you more comfortable with, like under tipping or over tipping, but feeling comfortable with how you're showing up, I guess, for the other people in the group.
Yeah, that sounds like such a nightmare, like traveling with people who undertip or may not like acknowledge etiquette. I get really bad secondhand embarrassment. I think it's probably why I've traveled solo for so many years. Like now I have a great friends who I travel with, but whenever I hear stuff like that, I'm like, wow, like I definitely traveled solo for a reason.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
tolerate also when people are just like rude or the customer service aspect is just not there.
Yeah, it can be really tricky. And I don't know, groups are hard because you can inadvertently draw a lot of attention to yourself, and I think you have to be careful of how loud you are in comparison to everybody else. How much space are you taking up? I find this honestly a lot more with groups of friends and other adults than I do in family situations. And I don't know, maybe that's just because I know how to contain my own family, but I don't have as much control over this other couple that we're traveling with or something.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, if I travel somewhere with my mom, I'm a lot more comfortable talking with her than, say, a group of friends because I always feel like I never want to babysit another adult. But sometimes when I just feel embarrassed, it's just like an awkward situation. And something else, like going off topic a little bit, but that's also a bit controversial, has to do with etiquette in like business class flying or etiquette in lounges. Like the United subreddit is like my favorite place to troll just because it is so outrageous and the posters make me laugh so hard. Like the amount of lounge drama is like so much. Like I wish that was a consuming problem for me on a daily basis. But I was just curious, what are your opinions on, say, children in business class or in the lounges? Because I know that that's been like a hot button topic recently. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yes, such a hot topic. You're right. There are a few things that blow up social media threads, like kids in luxury travel spaces. So, my hot take as a very biased parent is that absolutely kids should fly in business in first class. Period. I have no problem with it. Money is green. The points and miles all spend the same. If you have the means and the desire to fly your family in a premium cabin, you absolutely should. And I do not think you should let anyone tell you otherwise. And I think this is so uniquely American too. From what I have seen, like we as a country, I feel like are so hostile to families. It is crazy. When my older son was 9 months old, we set off for 3 months of travel and we started in Thailand. And it's a bit off topic here, but my friends and family, they were all a bit wide eyed that we were taking our baby to Asia and we didn't really have a plan about what we were going to do and how long we were going to stay. But to this day, I don't know that I've been to a more family friendly country than Thailand. They were incredible with my son. They were genuinely thrilled to have him everywhere we went. And when we left Thailand, we flew first class on Thai Airways, and the entire flight staff, they were arguing over who got to hold him and who got to walk him around the cabin. And as a parent, you feel that energy so much. It can make such a difference in your flight experience because, of course, I don't want my child to disturb other people. And I don't want to feel like I'm putting somebody out. But also, like, please don't expect something that's not possible and then tell me that I'm a bad parent because my child makes noise. Like kids and babies, they make noise. And planes are public spaces. And I think children should be allowed in all of them, provided that you're paying the same price for the ticket that somebody else is. I think I've been more disturbed by loud snorers on flights than other people's kids, many times. So if you've got enough money to fly in business class, you have enough money to buy noise canceling headphones. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Like, I have lost track of the number of times I've been annoyed by other adults on the plane, but really when it comes to like kids and babies, I've never had like any issues. And I agree. Like, as a teacher, like if any of my students had the opportunity to fly business class, I just want to hear all about it. Like, more power to you. Have fun, enjoy it. But yeah, like sometimes I feel like people can be way too harsh on families. Like if a baby cries on a plane, I feel sorry for the baby because it hurts their little ears. And I just want to like hug them and take care of them. We actually had something happen on our flight to Athens. My friend and I, we were sitting in economy plus, and the flight attendant came back from premium economy, and she knew I was scared to fly. And she was like, I'm really sorry to disturb you, but is there any way your friend can move further to the front because we need to use the bassinet for the baby? And we were only 3 hours away from Athens. We were like really far into the flight. So I was like, oh, yeah, sure. My friend went up, got a better seat. The mom came back and the baby was super cute. I was helping with the baby. But after the fact, we were just like, we can't believe like the people in the row right in front of them wouldn't like help them out like at all. They were just like really rude about it. So the flight attendant was so appreciative that we were willing to switch seats. She brought me like extra snacks, like an orange juice. And I was like, it's really not a problem. I'm like, the baby needs to sleep. And this is where the bassinet is. It's fine.
Yeah, a friend of mine has I don't know, he's probably 7 or 8 months old. And they just came back from Japan. And she said that she gets on the flight and she starts to get settled. And the person sitting next to her kind of looks over and sighs and is like, is he going to cry the whole flight?
Are you kidding me?
No.
My God, grow up, bro.
Are you going to complain the whole flight?
Like, is that
yeah.
the energy that we're bringing into this flight right now? And she said, this is like the easiest baby. He hardly cries. And I don't know what she did to win the lottery on that one. But she was like, no, he was totally fine. And I was like, yeah, but how rude of a comment to make. Like, I don't know. Are you going to snore the whole flight? Like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it makes it so much harder. Like parents already feel that so deeply, when you're on a flight. Like the last thing we need is us feeling like we've put everybody else out just by existing and having families, I think.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
that the judgment is not needed. I mean, I was also very fortunate. My daughter, she was really good whenever we flew anywhere. There was one instance that I forgot her formula at my cousin's house on the fly back, and she was, but like, it was bad. At one point, I just handed her to Michael. I was like, I just need to go to the bathroom for like 5 minutes because I just felt awful that she was crying uncontrollably. And of course, everyone around me is just like looking at me, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, the kid is crying. I obviously can't comfort her right now. So we're all in this together. So we only have 30 more minutes to just suck it up. So it happens. Like Rachel said, unfortunately for kids, like, I mean, I know whenever I travel, there's times that I'm a little bit under the weather. So sometimes like my ears get clogged. I just don't feel good. But imagine for a child, they can't express themselves in any other way but to cry. So just being a little understanding and helping a parent out wherever possible. I feel like that goes a long way. And like you said, it kind of just makes the flight itself be a little bit more smoother.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. And I'm a nervous flyer. have a lot of issues with flying. I hate turbulence. I'm on medication to fly, all this stuff. And I actually find sometimes when there's a parent who like needs a bit of help with their kid, it's good for me because it gives me a distraction. Like I remember years ago, this flight to San Francisco. Granted, I was on a lot of meds, but the kid kept like dropping his crowns. He needed stuff. So I would like pick the stuff up and help him out and was talking to him. And at the end of the 6 hour flight, the mother was like, I can't thank you enough. You were just like so good to my son.
Yeah, it makes a
Kindness goes a
huge
long way.
difference.
And I was going to say too, I know when it comes to, for instance, like accommodations, I know when we went to Aruba, we were staying at the Renaissance Hotel and they have the private Flamingo Beach. So they do have certain hours that are allocated specifically for families and children. And after a certain time, it's like adults only. So if you do want something maybe a little bit quieter or kid free, then just make sure that those type of accommodations exactly what you're looking for and that the hotel, maybe they have multiple pools and one is an adult only pool or there's certain hours and restrictions. I get it. Sometimes kids are just having fun. They're being kids. Maybe you want a little bit more quiet time. So just doing your research ahead of time, that kind of helps you out, making sure that the accommodations that you're choosing are to your specific liking.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so when it comes to luxury travel, I'm one of these people who likes to show gratitude for any sort of service. And again, luxury travel, you get some incredible experiences. What are some ways that the travelers can show gratitude without like overdoing it or being over the top?
I think one of the best ways, and something that I have started doing, is asking staff what the most meaningful way is to recognize good performance. Because there are some professions that are banned from taking gifts or tips, but submitting a feedback form and mentioning by them by name can actually get them a performance bonus. So it takes a little bit longer to fill out a form or figure out which website to go to than it does to just pull out your wallet, but it can make a really big difference for someone. Same thing for small businesses. Small business owners may prefer that you make sure to write them a review on TripAdvisor or on Google because that is long term going to bring more customers in. If you do that, if you commit to doing that, do it right away because you will forget or you'll forget the person's name or it won't seem quite as important once you leave, but it really can make a big difference. So I think that's a really good way. Just asking them what is going to be meaningful. So I know airline staff in particular, they can't take tips, but it does make a big difference if you fill out the feedback form. Most of the time they're getting complaint forms, so, but I think it's one generic form. And you can call out a flight attendant by name who performed a really, nice service for you or somebody who really made it a memorable flight for you. And that kind of thing really does add up on their performance reviews and the bonuses that they receive and things. So it's a really small thing, but I think it can go a long way. And then I think, this is not monetary, but it's just sort of like the good juju that you put out in the world, but just like recognizing when people are working hard, when a place is understaffed, or just kind of being a little bit more lenient with people in that situation and giving people a break, giving them the benefit of the doubt, thanking them when you can see that they're doing their best. Like you were saying, Rachel, about the PR staff, running the trip that you were on, like just recognizing when you can tell that people are doing their best. I think that kind of thing goes a long way. And then just, we've already talked about it so much, but just basic respect. I think it's all about respect.
The recognition, I think it's important because like you said, a lot of people are constantly complaining. So you hear all the negatives. So I know for myself as a manager, I love when I get positive feedback about my team members. And the other day, someone sent me like an email just saying thank you. They were so grateful. One of the team members really went above and beyond. And it was a very like well put together email. And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. And I responded back to the resident. I thank you so much for taking the time for providing the positive feedback because I usually just get complaints left and right. So it is nice to see because I know that my team works hard. So it's nice for people to recognize that. And I feel like that goes a long way in any industry. But I'm also curious when it comes to the behavior of a newbie, when it comes to the luxury travel space, like what are some behaviors that instantly gives that person away?
I think one of the things that really gives somebody away is trying to do everything yourself. So trying to manage your own bags rather than using a bellman or pulling out your chair at the restaurant, refilling your own wine glass. One of the hallmarks of luxury travel is the staff being there to anticipate your needs. And I know that it can feel ridiculous because Of course, I can open my own door and I can pull out my own chair. But it's one of the perks of luxury travels that you can, but you don't have to. And I think those little micro interactions can make the difference between feeling comfortable and feeling awkward in a new situation where you may not feel like you know all the rules, because the staff is going to kind of expect to do those things for you. And so then when you do them yourself, both of you are sort of left trying to figure out what are your roles here, because they're like, well, okay, you're doing that. So then I'm just going to be here.
It's so funny because that happened to me recently when we were traveling to Zanzibar. The hotel where we were staying for breakfast, it was like the buffet. So I grabbed my plate, and the person who initially sat us at our table, he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, let me get that for you, Miss Castillo." And I was like, "Oh, no, 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 I got it." He was like, "No, please let me." And I was like, okay. So I handed him my plate. And the crazy part is like my seat was like literally like 5 steps away. So I look at my daughter. I was like, I don't know. He just wanted to carry my plate. I don't know what to do. And for the
Yeah,
whole
I think
time,
I think you can just lean in and like appreciate it, because nobody's going to carry your plate for you when you're home. Nobody's going to open your door for you when you're home.
trust
Just
me.
luxuriate in it while you have it and
After that, I
appreciate
took
it.
advantage.
And,
He said, "Do
you
you
know,
want me to get you coffee? Do you want me to?" I was like, "Sure, why not, Esteban?" Treat me like the queen that I am.
That's
exactly.
amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, something similar happened to me in France. The hotel we were staying at had a Michelin star restaurant, and we had a sommelier. And at one point, I tried to pour my own wine, and my mom was like, "You do not do that," because she
Mm-mm.
likes fine dining, and she was just like, "Hands off." And I was like, "Sorry." So it is true, those little mistakes of just like trying to do everything yourself.
I think it sort of comes across to them as like they're not doing their job, right? Like if you feel like you need to do it yourself, then maybe that's an indication that they're not being attentive enough or something. So I think it's also just kind of getting past the sort of scarcity feeling that we can have sometimes of like, oh no, there's plenty of wine. We don't need to like rush to refill it. Like there's more. There's going to be another course with another thing, and relaxing into the time that you have in addition to the niceness of whatever the thing is in front of you. Part of it is just also the time that you have to enjoy it. Don't have to rush through everything.
Because again, in like my real life, I'm rushing around all the time. So it's nice to take a step back and like just savor being waited on a little bit. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
So, let's say someone is a new, luxury traveler. We've talked a little bit about not trying to do everything yourself. Are there any other top tips that you would give them to sort of blend in a little bit better and not make any faux pas?
Yeah, I talked about one earlier, but just doing your homework a little bit, knowing the tipping culture, knowing the currency conversion if you're going to be in another country. Like you should know what $1, $5, $10 is in the currency that you're going to be using, and having those small bills, knowing the dress codes. This stuff is easy to know now. You can usually go on social media and you can see just what is the vibe, what is the aesthetic of the place that you're going. So you can kind of calibrate your wardrobe to sort of meet that aesthetic. Because I do think that dressing the part can go a long way to making you feel more comfortable and confident in a new space. The next tip I would have is don't drink too much.
That's a good one.
That's a
I
good one.
I've seen some wild stuff happen, and I look at Michael and Samantha, and I'm just like, wow. And these are like really like polished looking people that I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm sure like you're like a high executive somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't be a sloppy drunk at the Ritz Carlton.
Don't do
Well,
it.
and
Just don't do it.
luxury travel can include a lot of freebies, right? You might get a welcome drink. You might get somebody to just pour you unlimited champagne while you're at the show. And the temptation can be there to definitely overindulge. And I think nothing makes you stand out more than losing control a little bit. So enjoy the perks. Maybe don't go too far with it. And then I think the last one is like, I think new travelers can have a kind of an inclination to try not to look out of place by trying not to react to like the niceness that they're in. But I think it can have kind of a blowback effect of like, oh, you're not impressed by anything and like everything's so passe. So like I think you got to find that balance between like the genuine enjoyment and joy of being in these beautiful spaces that are crafted to give you that wow moment, So you don't want to look like you're not impressed by anything. And you also kind of want to look like you've seen nice things before. So you have to find that middle space there. But I think being able to kind of hit that spot is good. I think the most tiresome travelers that I've been around are the ones who just cannot be impressed by anything anymore because they've done and they've seen everything. And, travel is supposed to be new and it's supposed to challenge us and show us new things. And I think being able to sit in that joy and that excitement and be able to share that. And I think that's received well in most spaces. So I think don't feel like you need to act like you've seen and done everything before.
It's like, keep it
Yeah.
classy, kids. And I think also too, I know being a content creator, I've been in certain destinations or like stood in certain hotels with other content creators doing like press trips. And the behavior sometimes I just look at them and I'm just like, listen, I know you might not be used to staying at these type of locations, but please just be a little bit more classy. You're giving us content creators a bad name.
My gosh, yeah. It's funny because I'm thinking of one press trip in particular. I won't say the destination. This was years ago. And the PR person was so sweet. He took me around everywhere, really went above and beyond. And I asked him because I was, just starting out in travel blogging, like if he ever had any really like crazy experiences with content creators. And he said one time he actually took journalists, it was a whole group of journalists around the destination. And they were so like unimpressed by everything, and they actually told him we've seen this before but better in other places. And I was like, they said that to you? And he was like, yes. I was like, are you serious? He was like, yeah, I'm serious. I couldn't believe it. I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, I've definitely come across a lot of people who they've had amazing travel experiences, but I think you have to find that balance and not let it dull you to the niceness. Each place can kind of stand on its own and doesn't necessarily have to be compared to everything else. I don't know. You gotta find the way to like still be excited and like discovering new things, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, speaking of things that are like exciting and fun, out of curiosity, do you have a favorite airline and hotel chain when it comes to luxury travel that you'd recommend?
We have been Marriott people for so long that is where the vast majority of my experiences have been in luxury travel. I do love the Ritz. I love the St. Regis brands. I gotta say the one that is kind of top of my list that I can't wait to go to are the Amman hotels. I have not been to an Amman property yet, and I'm plotting, I'm scheming. It is gonna happen. And then in terms of airlines, it's really hard to beat Emirates. It's really hard to beat Emirates first.
And
I
I've
need to
used them
fly
like
with
in
them.
I flew with them in economy when we went to Thailand, and that was an experience on its own. So I can only imagine like business or first class with Emirates.
I
I
need to fly them.
accidentally got on one of the new Boeing first class planes from San Francisco to Dubai. And it's the new cabin setup where it's the fully enclosed pod. And I swear to God, it's almost the size of an apartment. Like it is so huge.
Leave it.
There are only 3 across. It floor to ceiling, it closes. You have a closet. It's just massive. And it's unlike anything that I've been on that is not a private flight. And I can completely see because those jets can make flights that a private jet could never make. It's the best thing that I've seen. Now, I haven't been in a lot of the other Asian airlines and experienced some of those. So there's still a lot more for me to uncover, but I do have to say being on that particular configuration of the Emirates First Class was the best non-private flight that I've ever had. The staff, this was, I don't know, it was probably 2019, maybe 2021. I can't remember. 2021, I think. And they were super excited because they didn't know that was the plane they were getting. And it was one of the first ones that had come out. And they had moved our seats around because it had gone from a 1-2-1 configuration to a 1-1-1 configuration. And so they were like very apologetic. They were like, we're so sorry we had to move your seats, but we think this is going to be better for you. And here's why. And they were just like, we were all like, this is an airplane right now? Are you kidding me?
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah,
That's
that has to be
amazing.
my top one so far.
All right. I think I discovered my cure to a fear of flying. That's not Xanax. Just fly first class with Emirates.
There
Problem
you go.
solved.
Yes.
No more doctor's appointments.
No, the customer service is a whole nother level too. They're so polite, and I love like their outfits too. I was like, if I
Oh, they're
ever
so
became
pretty.
a flight attendant, that would be my dream right there, Emirates.
I love the red lipstick. Like, there's something
Mhm.
very classy about
I
it,
know,
and
like
they're
the
so
hat, the whole setup.
pretty.
Yeah,
They're so pretty.
beautiful. Yeah, that's a whole nother, a whole nother
Whole other
topic right there.
episode, whole other episode.
Man, all right, Ashley, are you ready for some fun? Would you rather rapid fire questions?
Okay, let's do it.
All right, you're in the hot seat. Would you rather get a surprise upgrade to a luxury suite with no Wi Fi for your entire stay, or stick to your original basic room but have flawless Wi Fi and all the digital perks?
I'm going to go with the luxury suite because I would love for more reasons to be present, be in the moment, not be distracted by my phone. I feel like I have such a love hate relationship with social media and things that anything that is going to encourage me to be where I am in that moment. And then if you can give me a suite on top of that, I'm all about it.
Exactly. Just
Yeah.
bring the pina coladas, go around. I'll forget about the internet.
Yeah, give me the sweet. Give me the sweet. Like, with all the AI slop out there, I'm like so over social media. I'll take the sweet any day of the week, please.
Yeah.
Please. All right. Would you rather accidentally undertip a 5-star butler in front of a crowd, or accidentally wear something wildly inappropriate to a black tie on board dinner on a luxury cruise?
They both sound awful.
That sounds
Yeah, I was
like
gonna
a
say they both-
disaster.
I don't know.
They both make me cringe a little bit. I'm a clothes girly, so I'm gonna have to go the wearing something inappropriate. That or no, I guess I would rather accidentally undertip the butler. I would rather not wear the wrong thing. I don't know. I have like such a fear of being underdressed or wearing the wrong thing, so I would avoid that one at all costs.
Same girl. Like, if I like stood out in something wildly inappropriate, I think I would just like jump off the cruise.
It would be so uncomfortable, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely be the center of attention. So
Mm-hmm.
standing
Yeah,
out
but
for
for
the
the
wrong
wrong
reasons.
reason, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think that gets me. I think that's it. It's like getting attention, but for the wrong.
I'm with you with that one. All right. Would you rather spend a week traveling incognito, pretending to be a luxury travel pro, even though you have no idea what you're doing, or spend a week openly asking rookie questions at every turn, and then learn all the insider secrets from the staff?
Rookie questions all day long. I feel like one of the things that as I've gotten further into writing the articles for the AP Wire and things is turning on my curiosity and just asking people tons of questions. I have learned so much and it opens so many doors. And I would 100% rather admit that I don't really know what I'm doing and then have somebody show me the way and tell me all those little secrets and, all of the little stories that they might have that bring color to a destination or an experience or something. So I've learned how to put on my kind of humility hat and say, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Show me around. So yeah, definitely that.
I agree. When in doubt, ask. I always say that to my students. When in doubt, ask. You'll learn something new.
Yeah.
It's been so great, though, having you on the show, Ashley. So, if there was one tip that you would give to that new beginner getting into the luxury travel space, what would that be?
One tip. I think pick like the thing that you care most about. Make sure that you make that part of your experience perfect and then let yourself be surprised by a little bit of the rest. So if you really, really care about that flight experience, don't leave the upgrade to chance. Or if you really care about having that suite, go ahead and book it, pay up for it. Don't wait and hope that an upgrade clears or there's space when you get there. And then let yourself kind of save money in some other places to make up for it in the things that you maybe don't care quite as much about. So I think you pick the one place that you want to splurge on and then you let the rest kind of fall into place a little bit.
I love that. Don't leave anything up to chance. It's so true. I've seen so many people being disappointed by not getting upgrades at the Newark airport. So always just book that first class
Yeah.
ticket if it's there.
If it's really important to you and it's really going to negatively impact your experience to not have it, I mean, I think there's two ways to go into it, right? You can be so pleasantly surprised when something comes up and goes your way, or you can be super disappointed if you were really, really hoping, knowing that you might not get it. So I think you can avoid that disappointment if you just kind of get clear on the things that are really going to make an impact to your specific travel experience. And I think that's different for each person. Somebody might really, really care about getting into an exclusive restaurant, or they might want the best seat at, a live event, but they really don't care about where they're sleeping because they're not spending any time in the hotel. They're going to be out and about. So I think you could just get clear on what parts of your travel experience you care the most about, and then double down to make sure those are perfect. And then you can leave the rest to kind of fall into place.
I agree with that. Make sure you know what your non negotiables are. And if you have to pay a little bit more to get that experience, then do it because ultimately you'll be much happier with your travel experience overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you being on the show. I'm like ready to like fly Emirates now and like go back to the Ritz and go back to the Ritz Carlton. The Ritz Carlton in Philadelphia was always my favorite as a kid. We would go there for Sunday brunch all the time, and I just have a soft spot for it. So maybe I'll book a staycation there. We'll see. Credit
Love
card, get
it.
ready.
Yeah, see, you just got to get the points and miles cycle going, and then it feeds into itself in such a great way.
Yeah, I got to be better at that. I definitely have to like read about it more for sure. I'm kind of a rookie with that, but slowly learning.
And on that
Nice.
note, before we make Rachel spend more money, that's a wrap on today's episode, besties. A huge thank you to Ashley for joining us and sharing her incredible travel insights about her luxury escapes and her tips to help inspire your next getaway. So we hope you loved today's conversation. So don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the episode with your fellow Wanderlusters. You can also find Ashley's work through Wanderlux and her syndicated pieces on the AP Wire. We'll make sure to include all of her information on the show notes. So until next time, keep dreaming, keep exploring, and as always, bon voyage, besties!
Bon voyage, besties. We love you. Stay classy. Bye bye.